Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Desiree, and if you are new here, thank you so much for stopping by. If you are on a journey of personal growth, you're working on your mindset, you're working on your goals, and you overall working on becoming a better version of yourself and evolving, then today's video is for you. Today I'm going to be sharing my top 6 podcasts that I recommend you all check out if you're on a personal growth and just evolving journey. So let's go ahead and get into today's video. The first podcast that I recommend is the Mel Robbins Podcast. I love this podcast, y'all. This podcast, I discovered the Mel Robbins Podcast last year from just the Let Them Theory being kind of viral. Now she has the Let Them Theory book, which I need to pick up and read because, yeah, 10 out of 10. Pretty much a good chunk of people have heard of Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins is a author, I should say New York best-selling author. She's a motivational speaker, I believe, and of course she's a podcaster. Mel Robbins Podcast, that's the name of her podcast after herself. And what I love about the Mel Robbins Podcast is that it's really motivational. It's really powerful, I feel like. Maybe some people might not like her because she's a little too corny or too motivational-y, but that's what she is. She's an author. She's a motivational kind of speaker. That's her background, and I really enjoy her podcast. I enjoy kind of her content because it's definitely uplifting and it's encouraging. And if you are on a personal growth kind of journey and you want to evolve, I feel like her podcasts have a little bit of everything. Touches on anxiety, motivation, productivity, friendship, letting them go, the Let Them Theory. She has a little bit of everything for different people, and I really just overall love her podcast. I love the guests that she has. Her podcast has been one of the top podcasts in the US and in different countries, and so she's so successful. And as a woman who aspires to do different things and maybe to write a book one day and pursue different avenues outside of what I currently do right now, it's just really encouraging and a powerful podcast to listen to. So if you need tough love, if you need almost a motivational pep talk, I recommend the Mel Robbins Podcast. There's a topic and a subject that she talks about on her podcast for everybody. So there's a little bit of something for everyone who maybe you struggle with anxiety or confidence or motivation or productivity. Literally, she has episodes touching on everything that you can think of when it comes to self-development and personal growth. So I highly, 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 highly recommend the Mel Robbins Podcast. Podcast number 2 that I recommend is Mindful with Mina. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing her name right, but I believe is Mina. Mina or Mina? I'm something around there. But I love this podcast. She is a licensed social worker and she's an author and I believe a community advocate or educator around mindfulness and health and wellness. I discovered this podcast sometime last year, and ever since then I've been hooked onto this podcast. I absolutely love it. She is just so knowledgeable and her voice is so soothing when you listen to her podcast. Her podcast is centered around improving your mental health and empowering listeners to live a fulfilling life and a joyful life by working on certain things might be hindering your mental health. And I just overall just love the different topics she talks about. She talks about managing social anxiety. She talks about overcoming imposter syndrome. She talks about burnout. I mean, literally the list goes on. And she just gives you really great practical tips to combat those issues. It's all about wellness, all about your mental wellness, your mental health and your mental hygiene. And I just love listening to her because she's so grounded in her energy and the vibe. Overall, Mindful with Mina really helps me slow down, self-reflect, check in with myself emotionally, and I highly recommend this podcast if you're into intentional healing, intentional working on your emotions, working on your mental health. She gives great tips, practical tips, and her voice is just so soothing and grounding, and I think you guys would enjoy this podcast. So check it out. Podcast number 3 that I recommend is the Mindset Mentor with Rob Dale. And Rob, keep it real. This podcast is quick and powerful. Like, if you ever need like a morning motivational podcast to listen to get you out of bed, to get you going, the Mindset Mentor is going to be for you. Because this podcast, I have to laugh because when I first started listening to Rob, I was like, ooh, he is calling me out. He just be like, you lazy, you this, you that, like not like in a rude way, but in a really direct way. And he really gave you like kind of like no nonsense advice. Like, I can just kind of felt it through the podcast, through my ears. I'm like, oh, not him calling me out. When I be listening to his podcast, like some of his episodes, I be like, ooh, he calling me out. Like, ooh, I do need to have a set schedule. Like, if I want to be successful, but I'm not putting in the work, then there's not going to be no results. I'm not going to get to where I want to go. And so he is so quick and powerful in his episodes, and he's so practical too. And so I just feel like if you need like everyday like morning motivational, you can listen to it anytime, but I feel like his podcast is great to listen to right in the morning for like motivational boost, and really just to get your mindset right for the day, for the week, for the month. Like, this podcast is amazing. And I love this podcast because it's really centered around personal growth and self-development. Podcast number 4 that I recommend is called She's So Lucky with Les. And this used to be called The Balanced Black Girl. She recently actually just changed her name and kind of rebranded her whole podcast, which I love. And now it's evolved into like a deeper conversation about money, career, identity, and confidence. Like, before, the podcast was more focused on health and wellness and just kind of more on the health and wellness side. But now as she has evolved and grown, and since I've been following her for years now, Les has kind of shifted and rebranded her podcast all about, evolving into a better you, right? And so she talks about confidence, she talks about money and identity. She brings in different people like Gabrielle Union and authors and other successful influencers onto her podcast to talk about different topics such as become the best version of you, how to grow in the social media world, and confidence, and just all the different topics that you can think of. She has solo episodes. She also brings on, other people to talk about different topics. Overall, really enjoyed this podcast, and I'm so excited to kind of see the new direction she's going to be taking. I know that The Balanced Black Girl was like a great podcast and has helped me over the years to grow. And I just kind of look at Les, like the host of She's So Lucky, as kind of like a big sister, because she's somewhere where I kind of want to be in terms of entrepreneurship. And she's such a successful, she's a single woman, she's successful, she lives in New York, and she's just overall goals. And I really look up to her. Definitely check out She's So Lucky with Les. Podcast number 5 that I recommend is the Hell Yes podcast, hosted by Haley Gamba. And she's actually a YouTuber. She's been on YouTube for, years now, but she's a successful influencer YouTuber. And she created a podcast sometime last year. I believe she launched it last year. And I've been following her on YouTube for, I would say, 2 or 3 years now. And I really enjoy her content on YouTube. So when she announced that she was going to create pretty much a podcast, I was like, yes. And I love her podcast because she talks more about kind of like self-help kind of content. So she talks about like dating, she talks about, I'm like looking at my phone to kind of see the different topics. She talks about embracing solitude and your isolation period. She talks about, vulnerability. She talks about friendship. She talks about how to face betrayal. She talks about a little bit of everything: self-help, self-development, dating, growth, weight loss. She talks a little more about weight loss and beauty and stuff on her YouTube channel, but on her podcast she kind of niches down and talk about like self-help topics, confidence, growth. What I love about the Hell Yes podcast is that it's all about personal power, making bold choices, and just overall personal growth and being authentic to yourself. And she shares personal stories and share her own experiences that she taps into to give advice. And I overall really enjoy her podcast. She's a Jersey girl, you know, she gives that East Coast vibe, and I just love her vibe. And overall, she's all about self-development and self-growth, and that I love. Anytime I'm kind of feeling stuck or doubtful or just want to have some girl talk via podcast, I put on her podcast. So definitely check out the Hell Yes podcast. Podcast number 6 that I recommend is I Am O with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson. And Craig Robinson is Michelle Obama big brother. I discovered this podcast a few weeks ago, and it's very relaxed, very chill, very conversational. Almost like you're listening to a conversation between Michelle and her brother, but they also give really great life advice. And I love Michelle Obama, okay? That's my girl. We love Michelle. And her brother really talk about just different life stuff, and it's so practical, and she just give great advice. Her and her brother both give great advice on life, and they talk about family, they talk about values, they talk about, you know, navigating the world the way it is right now. In addition to them talking about different subjects like family, values, growing up, it's also really funny and nostalgia and just full of wisdom. Like when you hear Michelle Obama talk about or share experience about her life, it's just like, wow, this woman have gone through a lot, seen a lot. She was a former first lady, and she just has so much wisdom to give. And so I just really been enjoying this podcast, and even her brother have great advice, and they give such a different perspective to different topics and subjects. In addition to that, they also bring on different like celebrity guests and friends, and I believe they had Kiki Palmer on an episode, and they just bring on different people, well-known folks onto their podcast to kind of talk about different subjects. And I just really enjoy this podcast and her perspective, both their perspectives and the different things they share and the different things they have learned in life. And Michelle Obama, she be giving some good advice, child. She be giving some good advice. So I'd be like, yes, Michelle, I wish she was the president, child. I highly recommend this podcast. It's fairly new, and every time I listen to it, it kind of reminds me of, you know, the lesson that growth isn't all about success. It's also about staying grounded in who you are and being authentic and true to who you are and making sure that you have integrity. And I just feel like when Michelle talked about her experiences and being who you are, she kind of talks about that growth is not all about success, but it's also about the personal work and the inner work that you do on yourself to be the person that you are. And so yeah, I 100% recommend this podcast and that you all check it out. So those are my top 6 self-development podcasts that I recommend you all check out and listen to. I've been really into these podcasts for a long time, some for 3 or 4 years, some just recently, and so I hope you all check them out. Comment down below if you all have listened to some of these podcasts, or if there's any other podcasts that you recommend that's centered around self-development, personal growth. So thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.